I'm Natalie Tisdall, a journalist who decided enough is enough. I left a career that looked glamorous to do what I was scared of doing, going out on my own. I'm a married working mom of 3. On this podcast, we're going to talk about issues that really matter. Why am I not sleeping? What's up with that diet everyone's talking about? Are my kids falling behind? How do I leave that job and start over? Welcome to the Natalie Tisdall Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, everyone. Well, something I have really worked on over the course of my life is resilience, bouncing back from hardship, pushing through what maybe subconsciously I don't want to do. Also, staying positive, overcoming some really tough stuff. And I know that you relate because I hear this from many of you in messages and in emails. I don't think that we are necessarily born with a sense of resilience. I think some people are naturally more upbeat, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're resilient. My guest today is an expert in resilience, Dr. Robyne Hanley-Dafoe. She's a multi-award-winning psychology and education instructor, and she is amazing. I loved this conversation. It went by in like 3 minutes, even though it was longer than that. I just learned so much. So wait until you hear her story, how she got into this, also her tips on building resilience for yourself, but also for your kids and those around you, how you can help other people in your life. And before we get started today, I want to ask you a big favor. Have you subscribed to this podcast? I don't want you to miss anything that I have in store because I have some really great episodes ahead. And if you feel so inclined while you're there, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a review of the podcast. Also, share it with your community, your family, and your friends too. Okay, here we go. Let's learn about resilience with Dr. Robyne Hanley-Dafoe. Well, Robyne, third time is a charm. We have tried several times to make this interview happen. It was meant to be. And I've really been excited on your topic and what you are all about because it's very much in line with what I believe and what I do here on my podcast. So we're going to jump right into resiliency. And tell me a little bit about how this came about for you and your background.
Yeah, of course. Well, first and foremost, thank you for this opportunity to connect. I've been looking forward to this as well. So where resiliency started to unfold actually came not from that kind of academic place where I'm working with it now. It very much started with just this kind of observation as I was growing up, experiencing a lot of challenges and a lot of adversity, really, that I started to kind of see that there was something that was helping me find a way through, even some of the most challenging, difficult seasons of my life. There was this capacity. And at the time, I didn't know it was called resiliency, but in reflection and on the other side of some of those challenges, and then going to pursue my education, I was able to realize and name it very much. It is that resiliency that helped me see through some very difficult experiences.
So was it at a young age? Was it, I look at teenage years with teenagers in my house as where you really build your character and who you are in getting through hardships. When was that for you?
Yeah, again, great question. So for me, and it's a wee bit of a long story, but I'll tell it to you briefly. So I was a child who grew up in a really solid house. I had very devoted and caring parents that met my needs, and everything from the outside was like, okay, this should be really smooth sailing for this family. We had the resources, the support, all that we needed. Yet there was a way that somehow I got off course. And it was almost a slow, steady erosion where it started kind of early in school. I wasn't doing very well in school, not necessarily hanging out with the best crowd. And unfortunately, by the time I hit 16, I was in a very dark season of my life. And my parents, they loved me so hard, Natalie, but totally helplessly. And at this point, I'd already dropped out of high school. I was navigating some major mental health challenges, and I was fighting through some pretty aggressive addictions. Now, my parents stood by me, and my mother in particular always had this steadfast belief in me, Natalie, that I could do hard things. She knew I was in a really challenging place, a difficult season, but she had that steadfast confidence that I was going to find a way to figure it out. And it was actually one of the interventions, I guess you could say, my parents tried in that really hard time, is our family, Natalie, actually moved. We moved from a busy cityscape into a kind of a more remote area, quiet, simple way to give me a chance to heal and to recover. And when I got there, I did do those things. I invested in my recovery. And the other thing naturally I did was get my driver's license. And it was pretty remote. So I needed a driver's license. There was no transit. And I'm happy to share this story with you on how this really is the origin story as to how I understood human resiliency in a very, very different way, I think, than a lot of folks talk about it. And what happened when I moved up north and got that driver's license, I had it for just 1 week when I was able to drive alone. And I was driving home late at night by myself, and a snowstorm rolled in. Now I'm from Canada, and it was February, and a snowstorm rolled in real quick, and I lost control of my vehicle. And the vehicle actually went off the road. It went off an embankment, and my vehicle actually crashed through the ice, and my vehicle sank in the Otonabee River with me trapped inside.
Oh,
so I was in this moment where all of a sudden, my car is submerged. I'm trapped, deserted road, middle of the night. And Natalie, I had this moment where I realized I wasn't feeling scared. I wasn't even feeling afraid. In this moment, I was feeling a little bit of anger. And I was feeling anger at the thought that I could not protect my mother from what was about to happen. That my mother is going to lose her daughter like this. And Natalie, when I thought about my mom, it was like this emotional echo rang through my bones. And I was so overwhelmed with this feeling that I can do hard things, like my mother had been telling me since I was a little girl. And in that moment, I made the decision to survive. I was able to get out of that vehicle. I was able to escape through the window.
Wow.
I got to the other side, though, Natalie, and I actually couldn't tell which way was up or down. They estimate the vehicle was almost 20 feet underwater. And in that moment of just kind of almost like you surrender to the situation, I had this idea of just to exhale, to let go of all of my breath that I'd been holding on to, because I knew my bubbles would rise. And I remember swimming as hard as I could, Natalie, after those bubbles, thinking, and I had this little surge that I'm going to make it. Like I actually had that moment thinking, okay, I'm going to find a way out of this. And then all of a sudden there was this like smash, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I realized my face was actually hitting the ice because I was pinned under ice. The vehicle that had crashed a hole upstream, but now I was dragged downstream. And naturally, I just kept trying to find a way to get out. And eventually, in the middle of this channel, I was able to get through the ice, and I was holding the edge of this ice shield. And that night, there was a gentleman by the name of Joseph. His name was Joseph Todd. And Joseph Todd somehow saw my car tracks in that snow. And he somehow decided to like drive all down that deserted road to see if he could see anyone. And he pulled up like his pickup truck over, and he sees my body out on the ice. He grabs wood and a chain, and he crawls out onto that ice. He slides out that chain, he wraps it around my body, and he drags me to shore. Now, Joseph Todd was awarded the Governor General's Award for bravery for risking his life to save a stranger. It's the highest award of bravery we give civilians in Canada. And the last little bit I'll share with you is when I woke up from the hospital, like in the hospital, my mother was there. And my mother asked me very clearly, how did you do it? How did you get yourself out of this predicament? And I said to my mom, it's very much because you told me I could do hard things. And my mother said, that's not actually quite what we had in mind, but I'm glad it worked in your favor. So me too, Mom. I'm glad it worked in my favor.
Unbelievable story. As a teenager, correct?
Yes.
How old were you then? Were you
16 years old?
I have teenagers, and I put my kids in situations like that, and you just hope and pray that they will have that resiliency, be it an accident or any difficult thing that they have in their life. Wow. What a story. Well, so that was a turning point in your life, obviously, for many reasons. And for some people, it might not be, I'm still wiping away tears. Your story is so incredible. It might not be such a big event or accident, but they still have to find that resilience to push through something hard.
Yes.
So you found this focus in your life. And let's go into a little bit more of what you have found, the pillars of resiliency, what those are and how we can learn from them.
Of course. So yes, that experience was this, sensational event that very much was this awakening, realizing that there is purpose, there's
Mm,
more at play than we can see, and really trusting that we're going to be able to find our way through even the darkest hours.
yeah.
And I think one of the pieces, and again, that really started that recovery for me, where for me, the recovery really became about education, about getting back into school, kind of getting steadied after such a challenging
Mm,
season, and then learning. And so then I spent, the next 20 years studying and learning and working with persons really all over around the world about, okay, what is it that creates that capacity to do those hard things, to be able
mhm.
to show up? And I really appreciate what you're saying, is that this idea that it doesn't always have to be this huge accident or this huge moment. What it comes down to is it's these daily decisions, this
Yeah.
everyday resiliency. And for some persons, it's simply just getting up in the morning,
Yeah.
getting out the door. And maybe it's making that difficult phone call, or even showing up, or whatever that is. As especially as a parent, we're stick handling and navigating that every single day. So it's not reserved only for these big catastrophic events. It's the everyday things that count.
It comes down to me, and I think because I made a big change in my life in the last year, and I hear from a lot of people who are trying to make a change and they don't
Yeah.
know how to do that. So sometimes physically, like
Mhm.
through an accident or physically, but I think a lot of this resilience also comes in an emotional way.
Yes.
How do I get through the relationship that's difficult? Or, so we're looking at physical and emotional, it all kind of comes together, right?
Sure. Sure does. And it comes into those 5 pillars, which you brought
Okay.
up. So the first one we've come upon is this idea of belonging. Each and every one of us needs a home team. We do need a person in our corner that's going to rally around us, that's going to protect us, or we feel the need to protect them as well. Like, we
Mm.
are very powerful when we are in that place of protecting our family systems. And so for some, it might be family, for others, it's chosen family. But each and every one of us, we need to be seen, we need to be heard and honored as our flawed self, right? So it's not like it's not that we're holding this perfection. People see all of the bumps and bruises, and they still hold space for us. So
Yeah.
belonging is the first pillar. Now, the second pillar we came upon is actually perspective. It's the way that people see the world, what they choose to look at. And as you already mentioned, it's the way that they feel the world. It's this alignment between our head and our heart. And when we can honor that head and heart connection, we operate from our values. So resilient people know how to make what matters most matter most. They
Mm.
know where to put their focus. Now, the third pillar we talk about is acceptance. And I can share with you, this is a challenging one, because as in our society, we're very much conditioned to think that acceptance means we have to like it, or get to that place of like, okay, fine, this is, this idea of resolution, or we have to let it go. What we've come upon in our work is that acceptance really is about first learning how to decipher your controllables. So once you figure out what you're in control of and what you're not in control of, then we get to that place of learning how to coexist with the parts that we don't like. We don't actually have to like any of it, but we make that daily decision to
Yeah.
coexist. And that might be grief, it might be loss, it could even be a diagnosis where it's like, we didn't sign up for this, but we are going to understand that it is going to be part of our story, and we're going to find a way to move through it. Now, the fourth variable, and again, there's 5, so I got 2 more
Okay.
quick ones
That's
for
good.
you.
No, I'm loving this.
Awesome. The fourth one is hope, choosing to live hope filled
Mm.
and living in hope with others.
Yep.
That is probably the most powerful place that we can make decisions from, in this idea that we trust that we might not know what's on the other side. And we know there'll be obstacles, challenges, difficulty, but we have that steadfast confidence, trust, faith that we're going to get through, that we are going to find a way to the other side. And the last one, it's a wee bit of a wild card because it's actually humor. It's like play and joy and lightheartedness, even merriment. actually helps us in a biological way navigate difficult days and seasons of our lives. And we often talk in my work about how, for example, like when you laugh, your body releases this like natural tranquilizer.
Mhm.
So your pain receptors are blocked. Another example is, for example, we know people who swear they live longer. Who knew? Some of us might be immortal. But the idea is we let moments happen. We don't brew or bottle. We let
Yeah.
things flow through us. And what we see in our work is that those 5 variables, when we foster and lean into those, Natalie, that's when we're able to weather the challenges and the changes and the hardships that we know inevitably we're all going to face.
Yeah. Oh, I relate to every single one of them. Every time you said one, I went, oh yeah, that. One of my daughters, she just loves improv comedy and
Yeah.
she is an actor. And so laughter is so big to her. And I find that when she walks in a room, whatever problem I'm having, and that kind of like, oh, it's that physically when you can just release that and have that and get through with that. So each one of those, I like something came up in my mind that was, yeah, that one. So when someone's going through a difficult time, as we all do, and sometimes for longer periods than others, how do you incorporate these things? Like it's hard to find laughter. And I think through the last year and a half in our world, belonging has been hard. We've seen a lot of isolation. Like, how do you, if I can say, manufacture
Yeah.
these things when you're going through hardships?
Yes. And actually, this is where my background as a behavioral scientist comes in, which I think is helpful because that's what we do. We look at the behaviors and the traits, the systems, the habits that we can do that's going to cultivate it. Now, this is kind of like, I would say a bit of a radical idea, but I do hope people can latch onto this. We don't do resiliency for resiliency's sake. Okay. We don't just bounce back because it's like, oh, we're supposed to bounce back.
Okay.
We do the resiliency so we can get to that place of being able to feel good and to live a good life.
Okay.
So these are tools that we're using that are going to elevate us back to that place of safety, of security, where we're feeling like we can show up wholehearted. So we don't practice resiliency again, just because, oh, it's bad and we have to deal with it. It's the idea that it's the tool or the gateway that's going to get us to that place of living the good life. And those tools that we have seen that are the most effective are really around wellness tools. And again, these wellness practices are self-care. It's not just doing self-care for the sake of self-care. It's because we want the freedom. We want the freedom to be able to feel well, to be able to look after those relationships, to have the flexibility in our day, to be able to make what matters most matter most.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the kind of the theory behind it. Now, what do those systems look like? And what I talk often with the persons I work with is that you need to have a game plan. This stuff doesn't happen by accident. So when we go back to the very basics, or where do we take our first step? The first step is to making sure that you have a system that helps you feel good. You need to have a system. You need to know what your source is to be able to hold good feelings again in your body. For some persons, it could be through movement. It could be through like walking outdoors. It could be time with loved ones. It could be music. As your daughter's using, it's that joy of laughter. You need to know what is your source. And you want to build systems that make that readily available to you, Natalie, because we want to dial in on what we call our comeback rate. Now, our comeback rate is when we're in a mood or we're experiencing something challenging, and we want to be able to get back to that place where we feel solid, grounded, and safe. So our systems are what do it.
That is amazing. And I'm also thinking from a parenting perspective, because that's the filter I put a lot of things through my world with a college student, a high school student, and a middle school student. And I'm thinking they might not know what that comeback, what did you call it again?
Comeback rate.
A comeback rate is,
Yeah.
But can I help them identify, for my one daughter, it's laughter. But can I help them identify what is that thing that brings you back so that when you go through hardship, you go to that thing? Is that a good parenting?
That is exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are some other examples of what those things might be, those comeback rates might be?
100%. So as a mama of three as well, so I can share this with you. For our daughter, for her, the big comeback rate is that we actually have to like take a check out of social media, right? We
Okay.
actually have to like,
I bet
okay, we
that's for
just
a
need
lot
a
of them.
wee bit of, yeah, we need
Yeah.
to take a little bit of a break,
Yep.
and we need to go back to those values in our family, which
Mm.
is like hard work, it's commitment, it's, our faith, it's like showing up for the people who need us.
Mhm.
So for Ava, it's this idea of putting her in that place where she needs to go and to be of service, right? So maybe it's helping her grandpa on the weekend rake leaves, or maybe it's her, walking someone's dog. Like Ava can get back to that place where she can get settled and grounded, where she doesn't feel all the pressure of being a 15-year-old young woman.
Mhm.
And so for her, it's service. It's volunteering at the gymnastic club and helping the little ones. Like it puts her in that place where she can reconnect to where she feels like her most authentic self and
I
use
love
her
that.
signature strengths.
Yeah. I think for a
So
lot of kids that acts of service, like you feel important. We talk about
yeah.
this with being kind of in that sandwich generation, and
Yes.
our parents who are starting to retire and have this like giving back could keep them. So that service
Yeah.
helps you feel important in life, right? So sorry,
Absolutely.
side note there, because it made me
So
think of
for sure.
parents. But okay. So, and for your other kids.
Okay. So for our oldest Hunter, he's in his senior year of high school. Hunter very much we kind of joke that like Hunter's like kind of love language is just like that deep connection, that one-on-one time.
Okay.
So for Hunter, it's that like maybe he and I'll go for like a drive, or we'll go for a walk, or we'll go do something just he and I, because he and I, we've navigated a lot, he and I together. And so he very much needs that one-on-one time. And that's a way that he can kind of get back to what matters most. He feels like his needs are met. Like he really needs to have that assurance that there's someone in his corner, that you are not alone. You're not stick handling any of this by yourself. You're always going to have your mom in your corner. So for him, it's that we really have to carve out that one-on-one time. And I can share with you just a quick little tip that I use as a parent, since these kiddos were babies. And Hunter, I would say by far is the one that like he and I've been able to figure this out. Whenever I would say to parents, like when you give your child an embrace, so when you're hugging your child, let your child let go first. Sometimes
that's a good tip. Oh,
yeah. Sometimes naturally it's so brief, right? It's kind of like the quick hug and go. And other times they linger. And that's when we know that they need that just a little bit extra support. And you don't have to say anything. It's just that connection that you're safe. I got your back. There's nothing that we can't figure out together, and we'll make it through this. But the best part is we don't even have to say it. It's just that hug. And again, he's this big 6'5", basketball player, and he'll come in sometimes and he'll stay there for like a minute. And that
beautiful.
Connection is so powerful. So that's Hunter's comeback strategy. And they will also have their own strategies that aren't involving us either. Like they've learned things as well. But the last one I'll showcase for you, Jax, he's our littlest, he's 13. And for Jax, it's hands-on shared activity. So it's one of those things where Jax is the one who like sits down and do some Lego with him, or do some type of activity where we're actually talking ear to ear. So Jax is we don't do the eye contact when we're talking to Jax sometimes when he needs to have that reconnect. It's when we're actually ear to ear. It takes the pressure off the conversation. So we'll be doing something like building some Lego, or we'll go walk the dogs, or even and right now we're raking leaves, but it's this idea that he just wants to be beside you. So what I've learned, Ava needs me to be behind her to support her in service. Hunter needs me to be like shoulder to shoulder, like looking at him, like eye contact. Jax needs me to stand beside him. So as a parent, my invitation to other parents is just try our best to kind of tune into what it is that really helps your child with that comeback rate. And when we give them that confidence that we know that they're capable, they'll start coming up with more ideas, but they at least know what it feels like, Natalie. They'll know what it feels like to feel safe and grounded. Now you go find some other things.
So do you identify these things with words with them? I mean, this as a parent, your husband, like you probably know how to navigate that, but do you talk about these things with them? Do they know that you have these strategies with them?
100%. So one of the things I would say probably about growing up with a parent who does, behavioral science research and behavior, like we talk about a lot. So letting them know, naming things is so powerful. And kids are just going to keep telling you that they're fine and they're okay. because
Yes,
they
they
don't have
do.
other
Mhm.
vocabulary. They
Mhm.
need to know other things like, are you feeling fired up? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling anxious, tired, weary, wobbly? So I want to give children as much language as they possibly can. So we name it all. Like we name the good, we name the bad, we name the ugly, because when we have words and language, all of a sudden that's the first step towards managing this like feeling
Yes.
factory that we try
It's
to
so
manage every
true.
day. Yeah.
And you have those words in your
Yeah.
background, but I don't think as a journalist, and
Yeah.
I know everybody else listening, they're in different careers, you can identify with your own words. They don't
Yeah.
have to be scholarly words for these
Yeah.
things. Like, give
Mm.
them words, make them
Yeah.
up. They can be funny
Yeah.
words. And so much of what you've just talked about with your children also, I feel like are very applicable to spouses,
Mhm.
friends, somewhat relationships with coworkers, or, being able to identify, and even like you might have someone that's difficult to work with, but as soon as you can start to identify how they want to be approached or how you work through hardships with them based on their personality or what they
Mhm.
might be going through, it applies to that as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you're saying about like, make it work for you. And when we can get to that place and to be able to do any of this work, what's really important is that we're actually present. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is when we're stuck in the past and we're feeling depressed and down or, regretting things that we did, or we're stuck in the future where we're forecasting and feeling anxious all the time
Yeah.
and worrying about what's around the corner, it's much harder to do those things. So really it comes down to like, how do I be a present parent? And I often talk about like our
Yeah.
kids don't need perfect parents. They need a present grown up, a present person that says, okay, I'm in this with you,
Yeah.
and doing our best to pull ourselves out of autopilot, because the busier we are, the more hustle, this kind of feeling of scarcity, and we're
Mm,
chasing all the
yes.
time. We don't
Yes.
have the spaciousness or the ease in our day to be able to have these conversations, to be able to show up this way for one another, whether it be our family system or, as you said, our colleagues or even our community or our neighbors.
One thing I think of often is I don't ever want to look back
Mm,
and go, oh, wow, I wasted that time because I was so
yeah,
busy.
yeah.
It's one of the reasons I left my longtime careers. I just didn't
Mhm,
want to look back. I had this fear of
yeah.
looking back and saying, I missed so many opportunities to connect. So if that's encouragement to anyone, okay, boy, I could talk to you forever. I'm learning
Oh,
so much, so much. Your pillars, like all of these things, so, so, so valuable. So I want to ask you a couple of questions, a few things I like
mm,
to wrap up with
sure.
somewhat, but I always learn so much here at the end of the podcast from other professionals and people. And the first question is your favorite tool for productivity. You're busy, and yet we try to be productive at the same time, be present. But
Mm.
how do we do that? Well, give me one of your tools.
Yeah. Tell you right now. So my best tool I can offer people is to have a morning system. Like have a morning system that is like this kind of predictable way that your day starts. And sometimes it means that we have to, kind of carve out a little bit of sacred time. But something I've learned about myself naturally is I need just a few minutes first thing in the morning before I open myself up to the world, where I can set the intention. I can get a little bit of activity, maybe walk the dogs. I can, say my prayers, have that hot cup of coffee. Like I have to make up my mind before I start my day, what kind of day I'm going to have. And some days naturally it'll be like, I am going to be a powerhouse productive. I am just going to knock these to-do lists, these to-be lists. Like I'm going to get it all done. And other days in that time in the morning, I'm going to say, okay, well, you know what? I've been going pretty hard this week. Today, I might need to walk gently. Today, I need more of a tender approach to how I'm going to meet my work. And one of the things that I found is being able to honor the energy that I have and showing up with the essentially the tasks at hand with the right amount of energy is actually my best strategy for productivity, because I don't burn myself out or empty all of it when I don't have any, like when my head's not in the game. Right. If it's one of those days where I know I don't have the energy, then I'm not going to put things on my agenda that's going to require top shelf Robyne energy. I'm going to do some of those easier tasks. And then what happens is when I'm restored and I'm refreshed and I have more energy, the next day I'm going to knock out all of those big, heavy tasks that I have to do. So
This
I
is
let my energy
brilliant.
work for me.
I
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing from you is so different from what I've been doing for so long, because I do that at night.
Mhm.
I make my list at night of what I
Yeah.
need to have done the next day. But yesterday, for example, I woke up just feeling like I think I dreamt a lot. And then I woke up feeling a
Mhm.
little groggy. And I
Yeah.
looked at that list and I went, like, I just didn't wake up with the energy I needed to fulfill what I had set the night before. So
Mhm.
I love what you're saying
Yeah.
because I then felt like a failure because through
Mhm.
the day I didn't have what I needed to get through.
Yeah.
So to wake up and set that and almost give yourself grace in
Yes.
saying, I don't know, today's not that day. I mean, you might
Mhm.
have the like essentials that are at the top of the list,
Yeah.
but to do that in the morning,
Yeah.
I'm going to change how I do that. Thank you.
Natalie, you're so welcome. And honestly, it's so true. And I can, so many times the people get a wee bit nervous and they say, well, Robyne, what happens if like every day I don't have that energy to do the big deliverables?
Yeah.
When you start honoring your energy flow
Yes.
and you get back into alignment, you are going to be so energized to do the heavy lifting on
Yeah.
those days where you are going to do it in like half the time because we're working with our body in attunement and we're embodying that sense of productivity. And those like easier days, those lighter days, like I want you to just fill those up with like even like puttering activities. I often talk about those are the days where I just kind of like want to kind of putter around the house, maybe do a few emails, maybe send some thank yous or some gratitudes, tidy my office. And then the next day, oh my gosh, I blast through even more of the to-do list
Because you've
because I
honored
have
that.
the right focus.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
How much time do you give yourself in the morning? Is it a half hour? Is it an hour? Because I think setting the alarm and then actually getting up with enough time, like I know what time my son needs to be up. So
Yes.
I try to give myself 20 minutes before that. But I
Mhm.
think I might want another 10 to 15 minutes of just
Mhm.
me time.
Yeah, such a great question. And I think it varies, right? At different seasons and stages of our lives, it's going to vary. When the children were little, it was very brief, right? It was tiny little windows. Now that they're a wee bit older, I find for me like optimal is to be able to like get a few minutes outside, like outdoors. Like I have to physically leave the house, walk the dogs. And thankfully, dogs are great to keep us on a system, right? They let me know that they'd like to go out. So doing that outdoor time is absolutely crucial. Coming back in, listening to a podcast, having that cup of coffee, just having a few minutes, that might be 5 minutes someday. It could be 20 minutes someday. But something that I know is I physically have to get out of the house, come back in that door with my mind made up. And
Yeah.
that I find, and again, even rain, snow, it doesn't have to be optimal weather. I trust that system. Now, often what I think happens sometimes is people try to base it on motivation, right? Like, am I going to feel like going for a walk in the morning? Then they see the rain and they're like, I'm not going
Mm-mm.
outside. What I've learned is like, you got to trust your system. I know even if it's raining and I walk for 20 minutes, half an hour, I will feel better. I'll have a clean mind. My heart will be aligned. So you trust your system. Don't rely on our motivation because it's pretty fickle. It doesn't always show up for us.
Yeah, that's great. Systems are important. And I like that that's your tool for productivity
Yeah.
is your morning system.
Morning
Okay.
system.
And then my second question, and I think maybe I know the answer because
Mhm.
you told your whole story of this
Yeah.
accident, but maybe it's changed. And that is,
Yeah.
what is your purpose? I love your overarching theme of what you do and who you
Yeah.
are, but when did you discover and what is your purpose?
What a beautiful question. So I think it's always evolving. I don't think finding your purpose is a finish line that you cross. I think every season in our lives, we're going to be able for it to grow and it to expand and maybe get a little bit more aligned. And very much what I've come upon, and I would say probably only in about the last 3 or 4 years. And when I started to move my work outside of the university setting and started to work with more persons, everyday people doing the work, I realized that me being of service and being able to share knowledge and tools and resources, not just in that university setting, but for the people who have the boots on the ground, being able to help reframe some of these narratives. That for me is very much where I started to feel as though this is the most authentic version of myself that I'm able to show up for others. And also coming to that realization that some of the most complex, hard, challenging experiences in my life have actually fueled a sense of purpose that otherwise I never would have learned. So
Hmm.
knowing that my hardships, that those tests very much are me in a place now where I can be of service and share it and to share that knowledge with others. in an accessible way.
Yeah.
I don't want people to only have to go through hard times or go to university to be able to learn this. I want this to be something we can have these conversations with all over the place.
Yeah. And to really know that purpose is meant to shift. Sometimes I think we come up with a purpose early in our life, and then we feel like, well, that's who I am. And we don't give ourselves enough grace and time and flexibility to say, no, I don't have to be what I decided I was going to be when I was 22 years old, going to college. I can change, and that's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think if anything, that's just such a beautiful testament to your growth. The fact that you've outgrown that vision of yourself at 22. Yeah. I want you to outgrow that. I want you to take it to the next level, right? And not in a way of that we're always like chasing. I want it in this way that we're always expanding. We're expanding to have a bigger reach, to do the greater good, to be of service, with that real deep intention of being able to help one another. Yeah. We're not meant to do any of this alone. We're meant to be in community. And even briefly at the beginning, you mentioned this idea about belonging and how hard it has been these last 19 months for persons. We very much are in a season of unbelonging. We feel so disconnected from people, but also even a sense of who we are and what we are about. We see all these people that are even exploring these talent migrations, thinking about, is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
And all of those are really normal reflections in abnormal times. And if we don't go through these abnormal times, we won't have these big opportunities to learn and grow and to change. Yeah. So these are, and it's not that there's a silver lining in everything, because some things just suck, right? There are some things that there aren't a lesson to be learned. It literally is just the fact that it hurts and it's no good. And there's always opportunities to learn and to grow and expand. So we don't have to like it, but it's that spaciousness that we're willing to put ourselves in these new opportunities and see what's possible.
Yeah. Oh, great, great, great stuff. I was starting to take notes. I'm like, no, I can just go back and re-listen. That's what I love about podcasting. I can just listen. You've given me so much. Where can people learn more about you, read about you? I know you have a book, and tell me more. Where can people find you?
There you go. So the best way is just Robyne, ROBYNEHD.ca. On our website, there's lots of information there, all of the socials as well, Dr. Robyne on socials. And again, I do hope that our paths will cross again. I love to build community, to connect, to answer folks' questions, and to keep this learning and sharing going. So Natalie, thank you for this opportunity to be part of your podcast. I appreciate it.
I encourage people to follow you. That's how I found you on Instagram, but on your website too, because you have so many great resources to help people. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I do want to do this again soon, because I know you align so closely with the people who listen to this podcast and follow me, because we share so many of the same values. So thank you, Dr. Robyne. It's been great to talk to you.
Take good care, Natalie. Anytime.
Thank you for joining the Natalie Tisdall podcast. You can follow along on Instagram and at natalietisdall.com. Subscribe to the show to catch every new episode, and leave a review so I can continue to bring you fresh content. See you next week.